So just to preface what's going on here, we received an email basically saying that whatever we say is being used in the court of law to stop SIRS patients from winning their cases. And so they're blaming us, blaming Eric, that the things that we say is having an effect on the outcomes of their cases. To say that we're the problem, that we have to be quiet and not know that these doctors that are involved in the SIRS paradigm, like Dr. Heyman, Andrew Heyman, whoever else, they're the ones that are literally shooting themselves in the foot, right, Eric? So you were referring to a blog that Heyman posted recently, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, talking about the future of SIRS, right? And so he basically says that SIRS is anything and everything, and everyone has it, and everyone's going to succumb to it.
And we can never recover. We can never beat it. We can try to deal with it. In fact, no living thing, because everything that's alive has this sarsen soup. So to some extent, every bug, plant, anything that lives has some degree of SIRS.
Just have to chime in here because I think it's absolutely ridiculous that anyone working on a CIRS case would even ask us to stop talking about this, because you guys are shooting yourselves in your own foot. The article that Dr. Heyman just wrote is coming out to say CIRS is the toxic soup of life. Any toxicity of any sort can cause it, and the world is so toxic now that this is now the new modern condition. If they go to court with that premise, there's no attorney that wouldn't be able to shoot down that case. So if people involved in these cases think that that's Eric's fault, they're extremely delusional, completely tapped out of the reality of this situation. And if they want to be in alignment with exposing mold, they need to talk about mold illness and not CIRS, because we don't use that term. I have mold illness. I don't have sickness from a brown recluse spider bite. And I wouldn't want my attorney taking me to court to sue my landlord and telling them I have CIRS so the opposing attorney can say, oh, well, according to your own expert witness, that's from the toxic soup of life, definitely not the mold in the building. Did they not see how they are hurting their own people? And then furthermore, how is that anyone else's fault but theirs? They walked right into a trap by using this stupid name that doesn't represent mold illness. And now there's going to be consequences of that for how that plays out. And that's not in our hands.
Mycotoxins are less than 7% of SIRS. SIRS is said by Dr. Shoemaker, not mold illness.
Right around 10% now, or we're getting a little better than 7%, are simple mold. But the diversity of findings of what we thought we would find in the literature for fungi has not been held out to be true. Why does remediation largely not work? Why does it largely not work? And the answer is fungi are overrated. It's being contaminants. Mycotoxins are overrated.
How clear is that?
Said by Dr. Shoemaker on a podcast with us.
Dr. Shoemaker said he regrets having titled his books Mold Warriors and Surviving Mold, and that people with mold in their business name or blogs would have to remove it. Will all these people that had mycotoxin summits and mold summits have to change their name?
I think so. They never were a summit to begin with.
So how can anybody win a court case using Shoemaker or a Shoemaker practitioner as their source?
Dr. Shoemaker made such a name for himself with all of his books and his various testing methods,
And a lot of people were basing their hopes for validation specifically on Dr. Shoemaker's work. And now we need some clarification on where can we go to substantiate our illness? Is it from Dr. Shoemaker practitioners, or are there others in the field who can give us better validation?
Yes, Dr. Shoemaker's credibility has been impaired and damaged through multiple reasons. We can't base his theories or his work in our legal cases. It would not hold muster in court.
You know, Dr. Shoemaker had at least a limited list of things that cause SIRS. Dr. Heyman extended this to everything. That thanks to the Sarsen-Ricin loop being perturbed by anything and everything, and it's a normal part of the human condition, that these complaints, these common complaints, have plagued mankind for millennia, if not forever. And this is just a normal part of the human condition. I heard that there have been some more legal cases, one on the basis of Shoemaker's concepts. I don't understand it. Are these attorneys not even looking at Shoemaker's position statements?
The Shoemaker organization that invented the chronic inflammatory response syndrome SIRS term, it was one thing, then it was mold, now it's everything. Like, what should people do now moving forward? Should they just abandon SIRS altogether?
SIRS abandoned them. People were clearly hoping for validation for their mold illness. That's not going to happen.
So you think the organization is abandoning mold patients that once received a SIRS diagnosis that was based on mold?
That's fairly obvious for a paradigm that once promoted mold as its premier suspect to reverse itself and say that now mycotoxins are less than 7% of SIRS and very unlikely to be the cause of SIRS. How is that not going to create hopeless confusion? As you see in the Shoemaker practitioner world, most of them simply went on and proceeded to keep on business as usual, as if SIRS was a euphemism, as synonymous with mold illness. Only a very few even followed Dr. Shoemaker enough to see that there was something wrong with this picture and started to move away from the term. So I think that the SIRS organization, Dr. Shoemaker's org, has gone off the rails and is no longer the foundation that mold illness patients were hoping for. They're using mold illness, as a euphemism for anything that occurs in a water damaged building. What? Brown recluse spiders? Lyme disease? If you get Lyme disease in a water damaged building, you can't mold. We used to think of mold as that fuzzy stuff that grows on sheetrock or oranges or onions or anything that you leave out too long, bread or cheese. And we had a pretty clear idea of what mold is. And now to say mold is a reference to anything, any chemical, any organic toxic thing that happens inside a water damaged building, but is probably not mold, is the height of insanity.
What's crazy is, like, we bring this information to light, then patients are confused by it. They still hold on to the term SIRS. They still fully believe that they have SIRS. There's organizations out there that serve the mold population that are riding the SIRS train. Do they not understand that this is a runaway train that has already crashed?
See the writing, see the mold on the wall.
So what should we do? Should we make mold illness the thing again? Should we go back to what our illness actually is and just call it for what it is? We're getting sick by mold. It's mold illness.
Could you please?
Should that be the term that we need to use and move away from SIRS?
I never accepted or adopted the SIRS nomenclature for that very reason. I got sick from mold, Stachybotrys. I don't need a vague toxic soup name when I can point specifically at what I'm reactive to.
Just think about what your leaders are putting out there. Your leaders have switched mold illness to now actinomycetes bacteria illness. Your leaders have now said, you know, anything that's toxic is just putting so much inflammation in your body that'll give you this condition. No one but us has put any special emphasis on mold to say, no, it's mold. We're sick from mold. That's the problem. We're going to call it mold illness. They're diluting this construct to the point that it doesn't mean anything. Eric has been saying for 2 years, it's a matter of time before an attorney who has half of a brain figures out this diagnosis is total bullshit and goes ham on the opposing side. And Alan Bell already said all CIRS science is junk science. So why are they still trying to use that in court if they actually care about the people that they're helping?
Just a matter of time before some attorney reads their subject matter and realizes that SIRS has completely departed the mold illness paradigm and has now become a condition that affects all living things.
How do they not see that that's meaningless in a court of law? I didn't pass the bar, but I know a little bit.
I often wonder what happened to Dr. Shoemaker's original Phaceria patients, because at the time, they were hoping for validation for their illness, and that seems to have completely gone by the wayside. His original name, biotoxin illness, was going to bring relief, validation, understanding of their illness to them, and now it's all gone. Same name, or the biotoxin illness, but different meaning, with no connection to its original object and purpose.
Forget about what happens in court. What's happening to all the patients who are chasing this diagnosis, who, because it's not called mold illness, don't understand all of the things that they need to figure out about mold to actually recover. Like, using this name is a way to keep people sick permanently, because unless you hyper focus on mold, I don't see how you have any chance of recovering unless it's just on accident.
Whether anybody recovers or not, this is simply not how science is done.
What was the SIRS science to begin with? Was it even really substantiated? It was just Shoemaker and his group coming out with what, 1 or 2 papers, and then, oh my God, this is.
Well, he was basing it on Phaceria from those people who got sick by the river, you know, and then that escalated to like biotoxin illness. And then he's like, well, we'll add every biotoxin and everything that causes inflammation. What could go wrong?
But this is not a real disease entity. This is not like CFS. This is not an ICD code. You cannot get treatment from your doctor when you have a SIRS diagnosis.
It was never officially adopted. They just pretended that this was some kind of, it's a pseudo-medical term that never had any mainstream substantiation.
So if you take a CRS diagnosis to an actual doctor, a MD, whatever, they just look at you like, what is that? I have no idea what this is. We've never been taught about this in medical school. We don't know what the hell this is.
Yeah, it's like in a court case. Could you use your pseudonym and not tell your real name? They don't know all that. They need your given legal name. If you change one letter on it, that throws your whole court case off.
So how are people then winning cases based on a pseudo medical name term?
They're connecting it to mold. That's what Robert McKee's doing. He's having people get mold reports from their house and then mycotoxin reports, and he's making the argument for mold. I know that's what McKee's doing. I don't know about the other ones. It seems like the treating doctors that testify as expert witnesses, then they're using those reports as evidence that that patient has SIRS. Does that make sense?
They're just skating by on the doubt over what sick building syndrome actually does or does not do without any real scientific basis backing them up. And yet the jury seems to be accepting that in some cases.
Well, what is Alan Bell doing? He's just basically getting information showing that the body is inflamed, right? And making the connection to whatever's happening in the environment based on the
Well, he's got the neurologist and he's got the immunologist, and I forgot that other professional that he works with, but he has those 3 doctors, and those 3 doctors make the case for how mold is harming people, harming their immune system, poison to their immune system, poison to their neurological system. And that's the arguments that they make. Specifically, the mold did this in these different ways.
I don't know how they're establishing that when they say at the same time that all these toxins affect the sarsen-ricin loop.
What do you mean? That went over my head.
It means that there's a lot of chemicals that you're exposed to in a building, not just
Oh,
mold.
gotcha.
And if they claim that mold illness is the sum total of everything, then how can they also say that it's specifically from the mold and the slumlord let the mold get out of hand? So that's the problem. Maybe the painter used some kind of toxic paint. Maybe the carpet was toxic. Maybe your neighbor sprayed pesticides.
Yeah, that's wide open to be totally destroyed by anyone who has the ability to think.
I really can't understand how anybody using SIRS as a basis for a legal case is winning in court at this point.
Well, we might be seeing the end of that, and that might be what this is all about, because maybe they're realizing that they messed up, and instead of taking accountability, I guess it's easier to shoot the messenger.
Are people still signing up for this? Are doctors still leaping to become a Shoemaker certified doctor?
I think that the ones who still think that they can capitalize on his name in the mold world are, but it's like, do you even know what you're getting yourself into when you adopt that treatment strategy? They don't. But they use it to try to like market his reputation for their own businesses.
If SIRS has a scientific basis, as Dr. Shoemaker says it does, then let him go to the other experts in this field, challenge them head to head, and let science prevail. If he's got the goods, he should be able to see any of these emerging mold experts and go, here's why my science is better. It supersedes yours, and now you must conform to my paradigm. Why doesn't he do so? Why do we have all these experts out there publicizing themselves, all saying that their science is good, but none of them match each other, without going head to head and finding out whose science really does prevail?
Who are you referring to in specifically? Shoemaker versus who?
Well, in particular, when we had the Mold Congress just 15 minutes away from Dr. Nancy Klimas in Florida, I suggested that if we've got the evidence, which I think we do, that mold is harmful, we can drive 15 minutes down the road, knock on Dr. Nancy Klimas's door, and say, this is something that can't be ignored because we have sufficient evidence backing this up. And somehow they saw fit not to do that. This was not important to them. And this didn't seem like a behavior that any normal researcher would do, because if you think that you can prove your case, you want to get in there and show exactly how you can.
That's such a good point. Yeah, it's like they just want to shut us up without ever having a conversation. Well, how about you come here and how about we chat about it? And then whoever's actually right, that's what we agree with. No, just shut your mouth. At least we're getting to them.
The fact that people think that we exposing mold has a say in the outcome of a court case and then trying to use us as a scapegoat as to the reason why they're losing their court cases is just beyond me. You guys.
The fact that people would think that we're not going to tell the truth. And put the most uncomfortable things on blast. That's literally what we do.
How many episodes does Eric have we put out there of Eric saying the same thing over about SIRS and like the whole paradigm? Like
all of them.
Right,
we were really clear in that episode with Caleb and Sean, maybe those guys from Australia. Like, we tried to tell them what was happening with CIRS, and we warned them. We made the prediction. We were right. It happened, and now it looks like it's going to happen here. I wonder if CIRS will even be a thing in 2 years, or if it'll be a has-been by then.
At least it won't be boring.
we need a little bell, little Eric bell. That whenever he's right, we just like ding, 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 ding.
Come on, we got to sleep sometimes. We can't have a bell going off.
Ring the Eric alarm. He's right again. Damn it. And that, you guys, is doctors behaving badly.